Rude man grabbed the waitress by the arm. The Mafia boss appeared. What he said shocked everyone. Family, before we dive into this story, please like, share, subscribe, and comment so this channel can keep growing. Your support means everything, and you're part of this family now. Tonight's story will keep you on the edge, so stay with me till the end. Sofia Marino lived a quiet, simple life, doing her best to survive each day. She worked long hours at La Notte, a well-known Italian restaurant where people with money and people with power came to eat. Sofia just wanted peace. But peace wasn't what she got that night. A loud, entitled man kept snapping at her, mocking her, treating her like she didn't matter. She tried to ignore him. She tried to stay calm. But when he insulted another waitress, Sofia finally spoke up. A simple sentence. A simple act. A tiny moment of courage. And that was the sin she didn't even know she committed. The man stood up, furious. He grabbed her arm hard, pulling her close as the entire restaurant went silent. Everything stopped. Every fork froze midair. Every voice died. Sofia's heartbeat was the only sound she could hear. Then the air shifted. Someone powerful had entered the room. Slow footsteps. A cold presence. Every man in the room straightened. Every woman looked away. Vittorio Eduardo, the Mafia boss, stepped forward. His face unreadable. His voice calm. He said only one word. One cold command that changed Sofia's fate forever. Release. Vittorio's voice cut through the room like a cold blade, and the thug's hand dropped instantly from Sofia's arm as if he'd touched fire. The entire restaurant held its breath as Vittorio Eduardo walked forward, each step slow, steady, and filled with the kind of power nobody dared challenge. Conversations died. Chairs stopped moving. Even the music felt like it lowered itself out of respect or fear. The thug tried to speak, but his voice cracked the moment Vittorio's eyes landed on him. Vittorio didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. He didn't even look angry. That made it worse. Explain, he said quietly, and the man swallowed hard, looking around for help that wasn't coming. The staff stared in shock. They had all worked here for years, and none of them had ever seen the boss step out of the shadows like this. Vittorio waited, still, unblinking, until the thug stammered something about Sofia disrespecting him. Vittorio didn't even look at the man anymore. His attention shifted to Sofia, to the red marks on her arm. He didn't ask permission. He didn't need to. His voice stayed calm, but every person in the room felt the weight behind it. Apologize to her, he ordered. The thug's mouth dropped open in disbelief. Nobody refused Vittorio. Nobody even hesitated. The apology came out shaky and weak, and only then did Vittorio step back, giving the man room to run. Because that's exactly what he did. The staff exchanged looks, fear, confusion, shock. One whispered, "He never intervenes." Another muttered, "Why her?" Someone else said under their breath, "Sofia, be careful. You're on his radar now." Vittorio turned to her, his expression unreadable. "You're done for the night," he said. "Tomorrow, 1 p.m., you will come to my office. No explanation. No choice." Then he walked away, leaving the entire restaurant trembling and Sofia standing frozen, realizing her life had just crossed a line she didn't even know existed. Sofia barely slept that night, replaying every moment, every whisper, every warning, and by the next afternoon she found herself standing in front of a tall black glass building she never even knew existed. Vittorio's headquarters. No signs. No names. No mistakes. Inside, everything was quiet, polished, and controlled. The receptionist didn't ask who she was. She simply said, "He's expecting you," as if Sofia had been on the schedule long before she ever arrived. When she stepped into his office, Vittorio wasn't looking at her. He was reading a file. Her file. Without lifting his eyes, he said, "Your mother passed away 3 years ago." Sofia froze. "No one here should know that." He continued softly, "You dropped out of school after that. Started working at 16 to pay rent. No debts. No criminal record. Clean. He finally looked up, his gaze steady and sharp. I like knowing who I'm dealing with. His tone wasn't gentle. It wasn't cruel either. Just factual. Cold, efficient truth. He asked her questions, not loud, not emotional, but pointed. Why did you stand up to that man? Why didn't you walk away? Why didn't you shout for help? She answered honestly, because lying felt impossible under that stare. And when she finished, he closed the file as if something had already been decided. You can't stay at La Nate, he said. After last night, you are a target there. Sophia shook her head. I can handle myself. No, he replied calmly. You can't. Not in my world. He stepped around his desk, stopping in front of her with the same cold authority he carried the night before. I am offering you protection. She frowned. Protection from what? From the consequences of a rule you broke without knowing. From the men who now think you embarrassed one of ours. From the people who will come looking. She stepped back, shaking her head again. I didn't ask for this. I just want my life back. That is no longer an option, he said simply. Last night changed your path. She tried to protest, but every reason she gave, he countered with something she couldn't argue against. His voice never rose. His expression never shifted. He spoke like a man stating facts, not giving choices. So here is what will happen, he said. You will work for me. A controlled environment. A safe environment. You will assist with tasks I assign. Basic work. Basic hours. Nothing more. Sophia stared at him, confused, overwhelmed, trapped between fear and survival. And if I refuse? He didn't threaten her. He didn't move. He just looked into her eyes and said, then you will have no shield. And everyone who saw what happened last night will know it. The truth hit her like cold water. Saying no meant danger. Saying yes meant stepping deeper into a world she didn't want. But it was the only way to stay alive. Her voice came out small. Fine. I'll take the job. He nodded once, as if her decision was expected. Then understand this, Sophia Marino. From today forward, your life is tied to mine. And there is no turning back. Vittorio didn't give her time to breathe or settle. The moment she accepted the job, he said, You're coming with me. And within minutes she was in the back seat of a black SUV, heading somewhere she had no business being. His men stared at her through the rearview mirror, whispering quietly, sizing her up, suspicious of the stranger suddenly standing beside their boss. When they arrived at an old warehouse near the docks, the air changed. Trucks, crates, men in dark jackets, low voices speaking in codes she didn't understand. At least not fully. Words like shipment, routes, and clearance passed between them with heavy meaning. Sophia kept her head down, trying to stay invisible, but every pair of eyes followed her, confused why a waitress from La Nate was suddenly here. Vittorio's underboss, a rough older man named Rocco, stepped forward and frowned. Boss, why is she here? His tone wasn't respectful. It was challenging, like he was questioning a decision he shouldn't question. Vittorio didn't break eye contact. She works for me now. Rocco scoffed. With respect, she doesn't belong in meetings like this. She doesn't understand the rules. She doesn't understand our business. Sophia felt every stare tighten around her. Vittorio didn't raise his voice. She will learn. Rocco stepped closer, lowering his tone. Or she will get us exposed. Vittorio didn't blink. She is under my protection. That is enough. The men fell silent. Not because they agreed, but because they feared pushing further. Then, during the meeting, a dispute broke out over missing inventory. Papers were shoved at Sophia by accident as the men argued. Rocco snapped. Give that back. She doesn't need to see that. But Vittorio looked at her sharply. Read it. Sophia froze. Sir, I read it. She scanned the document, heart pounding. She didn't understand everything, but she recognized mismatched numbers and routing errors. She pointed out a simple mistake, something the men had missed in their tension, and the room fell silent. Vittorio nodded once. Exactly. Rocco glared at her, but said nothing. The others stepped back, their suspicion shifting into something else, respect mixed with caution. Sophia hadn't meant to prove anything. She was just trying not to look foolish. But that small moment changed everything. For the first time, the men looked at her not as a threat, but as someone who might actually matter in this world of shadows. And just like that, without understanding how or why, Sophia Marino stepped deeper into the conflicts, secrets, and silent wars of the Eduardo crime family, far deeper than she ever intended to go. From that moment in the warehouse, the entire Eduardo organization began to shift around Sophia, and not in a good way. Rumors spread fast, whispers in hallways, quiet conversations that stopped the second she walked by. Men who once ignored her now watched her with narrowed eyes, wondering why a waitress suddenly stood so close to the boss. Some said Vittorio was losing focus. Others said he was breaking rules. A few said she was a spy planted by a rival family. None of it was true, but truth didn't matter in a world built on suspicion. Rival families caught wind of her sudden rise, and they didn't stay quiet. They began testing Vittorio's boundaries. Late-night threats, small hits on minor businesses, probing attacks on weak spots. They wanted to know who this girl was and why she mattered. Then things started going wrong from the inside. Shipments delayed. Documents misplaced. Numbers changed at the last second. Someone was sabotaging operations, slow and silent, and each time something went wrong, the blame slid toward Sophia because she was the easiest target. She'd walk into a room and the talking would stop. She'd reach for a file and someone would yank it away, mumbling that she had already done enough damage. But Vittorio didn't push her away. He called her into more meetings, asked for more updates, trusted her with more information. He said it was because she was observant, calm, and useful. But the men saw something else, a crack forming in the structure, a weakness they didn't accept. Their loyalty to Vittorio began to divide. Some stayed silent, obeying his decision. Others began questioning him behind closed doors. A few started speaking to enemies, feeding them lies that grew into dangerous truths. They used Sophia's mistake, that one small incident at the restaurant, as fuel to turn the organization against itself. And somewhere in those dark corners, in quiet conversations Sophia could never hear, a betrayal was forming, built on resentment, fear, and the belief that removing her would fix everything. They didn't understand. Removing her would only ignite the fire that was already spreading. Sophia didn't realize how deep she had fallen into Vittorio's world until the night he allowed a curtain to lift, a curtain no one in the organization ever saw behind. It happened quietly, without warning. They were reviewing reports in his office when a file slipped from a drawer, revealing an old photograph. 2 adults, a little boy, a car in the background. Vittorio froze for the first time since she'd met him. When she gently asked, "Who are they?" he didn't snap, didn't shut down, didn't threaten. He just said, "My parents," in a voice that carried years of pain. And with that single word, the rest came slowly. A car accident when he was 14. No extended family. No safety net. No one to protect him. He survived by becoming harder than the world around him, rising through the ranks not because he wanted power, but because he needed control in a world that once took everything from him. Sophia didn't try to comfort him. She simply listened, and that was what he respected most. She didn't look at him like a monster or a legend. She looked at him like a human being carrying too much weight. From then on, he depended on her honesty, her calm voice, her ability to tell him the truth without fear. Whenever tension rose, he asked her opinion first. Whenever decisions felt heavy, he waited for her steady presence. Without meaning to, she became the one person who could bring him back from the edge when the world pressed too hard. But the more he relied on her, the more uneasy his men grew. They exchanged looks every time she entered a room. They tensed whenever Vittorio asked her for clarity or handed her files only his inner circle should see. The organization split in two, those who trusted the boss blindly and those who feared Sophia's influence, believing it made him vulnerable. And enemies outside the family noticed the shift too. They sensed the imbalance, the hesitation, the weakness. They saw a girl who wasn't supposed to matter suddenly standing close to a man who could not afford distractions. So they pushed harder. They struck faster. They moved closer. Because in the shadows, everyone now believed the same dangerous thing. If they wanted to break Vittorio Eduardo, they only needed to touch the one person he had begun to rely on, Sofia Marino. The breaking point came on a cold night when the warehouse alarms erupted without warning, sirens echoing through the docks as men shouted and scrambled for cover. It wasn't a random hit. It was too precise, too clean, too fast. Someone on the inside had opened the door. Vittorio's men caught the traitor before he escaped. A young soldier named Marco, someone quiet, someone no one ever suspected. They dragged him into the center of the warehouse, bruised and shaking, and the second he saw Vittorio, he broke down. "It's her," he cried, pointing straight at Sofia. "They wanted her. They said she's your weakness." The entire room fell silent, the accusation hanging in the air like smoke. Sofia felt her stomach twist, her knees threatening to buckle as Marco continued rambling, desperate to save himself. They asked about what she knows, where she goes, who she talks to. They wanted access through her. They said she's the only way to reach you. Vittorio didn't move, didn't blink, but the cold in his eyes deepened into something darker. He stepped closer to Marco. "And you gave them information," he said quietly. Marco nodded through tears. I had no choice. They threatened me. They said if I didn't talk, they'd..." Vittorio didn't let him finish. "You chose betrayal." Sofia felt her chest tighten as she watched the brutal truth unfold. This world didn't forgive mistakes. It didn't accept apologies. It didn't care about reasons. This was the reality she had stepped into. And reality demanded consequences. Marco looked at Sofia again. You ruined everything," he whispered. "You shouldn't be here. None of this would have happened if he didn't protect you." Sofia stumbled back as his words hit her. She had never wanted this. She had never wanted anyone hurt because of her. She whispered, "Vittorio, I can't do this. I shouldn't be part of this." She tried to step away, but he caught her arm, not harshly, but firmly, grounding her, anchoring her in place. "You walk away now," he said, "and they will come for you. They already know your name, your face, your weakness. There is no going back." His men waited for his decision, their eyes burning into her, into him, demanding he follow the old laws. The law was simple. If someone became a weakness, they were removed. But Vittorio did the unthinkable. He placed himself between Sofia and everyone else. "She stays under my protection," he said. "This is my decision." The warehouse erupted in tension. Rocco glared at him. Others exchanged furious looks. Marco's face twisted in disbelief. Vittorio had just broken a Mafia rule older than any of them. A rule that kept leaders alive. A rule that kept families stable. By protecting Sofia, Vittorio shattered the balance, and everyone in the room felt the ground shift beneath their feet. Marco's betrayal was no longer the problem. Vittorio's defiance was. And in that moment, one truth settled over the docks like a storm cloud. War wasn't coming. It had already begun. The moment Vittorio chose to shield Sofia, the air inside the warehouse shifted from tense to deadly, and every man watching understood what he had just done. His authority, once absolute, cracked in front of them. Rocco stepped forward first, voice low but shaking with anger, saying what the others were thinking. "Boss, you broke the code." For her. No one dared raise a gun, but the look in their eyes was worse. Doubt, distrust, division, and doubt inside a Mafia family was a silent bullet. Word traveled fast. By sunrise, rival families already knew the truth. Vittorio Eduardo had protected a civilian over tradition. That meant weakness. That meant opportunity. They struck without hesitation. Small attacks at first, cutting off routes, blocking suppliers, pressing every pressure point he had spent years building. Inside his own organization, men whispered in corners, asking if Vittorio had lost control, asking if he still deserved his seat. Lines were drawn. Loyalty split. Some supported him. Others believed Sofia was the reason everything was falling apart. Sofia saw the damage spread like fire. Every step she took, every decision she made, every room she entered seemed to spark more resentment. She had never meant to destroy anything, but everywhere she looked, something was burning because of her presence. She tried to beg Vittorio to distance himself, to let her go, to put things back the way they were. But he stood firm, shoulders squared, voice steady. No, this is my choice. Not yours. Not theirs. He knew the cost. He accepted it. He didn't blame her. And that made the weight on her chest even heavier. Protecting her sealed his fate, and she knew it. So she did the only thing she could. She tried to protect him back. She stayed alert. She watched the men who avoided eye contact. She listened to whispers meant to be hidden. She warned him of movements she barely understood. Two people, one powerful, one powerless, now tied together by a chain neither of them asked for, standing in the center of a war neither wanted. And the world around them was closing in fast, ready to crush them both. The spiral hit fast, faster than Sofia or Vittorio could react, and once it started, there was no stopping it. The first betrayal came from inside. Men he had trusted for years suddenly broke ranks, turning on him in meetings, refusing orders, whispering that the family needed a leader who didn't bend rules for a civilian. Then his closest allies, people who once swore loyalty to his name, slowly stepped away, claiming neutrality while secretly negotiating with rival families. Every shift of loyalty was a knife in his back, each one cutting deeper than the last. Enemies saw their chance and moved with precision. They used Sofia's name as fuel, claiming Vittorio had allowed a waitress to cloud his judgment, claiming she was the reason his rule was slipping. They called her the crack in his armor, the spark that exposed his weakness, the doorway into his empire. And people believed it. The Eduardo organization split completely. Half followed the old laws, demanding tradition be restored. The other half tried to stand with Vittorio, but they were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmaneuvered. His empire, built through years of control and ruthless order, fractured into pieces. Every hit, every loss, every abandoned alliance pointed back to her. Sofia felt the weight of every pair of eyes blaming her for the chaos. Doors closed when she passed. Voices rose when she left. She didn't belong here, yet she had become the center of a storm that was destroying everything. Vittorio isolated himself, not because he wanted to, but because he was forced to. The laws he rewrote for her became the chains tightening around him, dragging him down. His enemies demanded punishment. His own men demanded blood. And for the first time since she met him, Sofia saw fear in his eyes, not for himself, but for her. He could no longer shield her from the world he had tried to keep her safe in, and she could no longer shield him from the consequences of his choices. When the final attack came, it wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, efficient, and merciless, the way the Mafia always corrects its mistakes. Vittorio was removed from power, stripped of everything he built, and Sofia was left standing alone, unprotected, marked by a world that no longer had any reason to spare her. The empire reset itself, cold and unforgiving, erasing the man who broke its rules and the girl who never meant to be part of it. In the end, there was no rescue, no miracle, no turning back, only silence where an empire once stood, and a reminder that the Mafia never forgives a weakness, even when the weakness never asked to exist. Sofia didn't run at first. She stayed frozen in the ruins of Vittorio's downfall, trying to understand how everything had collapsed so quickly. But the Mafia wastes no time correcting what it sees as a mistake, and by the next morning, The truth was spreading through the city like wildfire. She wasn't just the cause of his fall, she was the symbol of it. The message was sent in whispers, in coded calls, in quiet footsteps that began appearing too close behind her. Find the girl. Erase the weakness. Close the chapter Vittorio broke. She didn't need Vittorio to warn her. She already knew. Anyone connected to him was now a target. But she was the one they wanted most, not for information, not for revenge, but to erase the reminder of the law he dared to break. Vittorio survived, but only as a shadow, a ghost stripped of his seat, his men, his empire. He didn't chase her. He couldn't. The price on her head was now the chain around his. He moved through the city like smoke, unseen, unheard, drifting through abandoned safe houses and forgotten warehouses. A man once feared by all now existed only in the cracks of the world. And even there, he was alone. Meanwhile, Sophia disappeared from the map. No goodbyes. No warnings. No trace. One night she was in the city. The next she was gone, swallowed by back roads, cheap motels, and borrowed names. She learned to keep her head down, to avoid cameras, to sleep in places where no one asked questions. Every knock made her flinch. Every shadow made her heart race. She didn't know who was hunting her anymore. The enemies who blamed her for the war, or the remains of Vittorio's own men trying to clean up what they believed had destroyed them. And somewhere far behind her, Vittorio walked his own silent path, stripped of everything except the memory of the one choice that cost him his throne. He didn't search for her. He didn't reach out. But he never forgot. 2 lives destroyed by a moment neither of them wanted, 2 people trapped in separate worlds they never asked to enter. No reunion. No closure. Just a waitress forced into the dark and a fallen mafia boss wandering the shadows of the empire he once ruled. Both alive, both breathing, but both lost in a story with no heroes, no forgiveness, and no happy ending. And that's where today's story ends, family. Thank you so much for staying with me till the very last moment. It truly means more than I can say. I hope you felt every twist, every breath, every shadow in this world we just stepped into together. If you enjoyed the journey, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your support is what keeps this channel alive, growing, and creating more stories just for you. Tell me, what part hit you the hardest? Who do you think was truly at fault? And should I continue this universe with more cold mafia tales? I'm reading every single comment, and I appreciate each one of you deeply. We're not just viewers here, we're one big storytelling family. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming back. And thank you for making this channel a home. Stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next story, family.